less than 3 weeks, we've lost another beloved member of our community in the most unimaginable way. You know, as an organization, we are heartbroken for what we are having to witness and endure and watch, and we just want to extend our thoughts, prayers, and concern for Mr. Pretti, family, all the loved ones, and everyone involved in such a unconscionable situation in a community that we really love, full of people who are by nature peaceful and prideful. And, you know, we just stand in support of our great community here. And also I'd like to extend I'd like to extend to the leadership, Adam Silver, Matt Caldwell, Tim Connolly, and the Golden State Warriors, you know, our thanks for the decision yesterday, because playing basketball just didn't feel like the right thing to do. You know, hopefully we can play today, move forward, but, you know, we feel like we got a lot of work to do. So, thank you very much.
To postpone the game yesterday?
I got a call from Chris Finch during our meeting, our coaches meeting yesterday. I had already gotten a couple of texts from Mike Dunleavy telling me that the league was thinking about postponing the game, and then Chris called me. We talked, and you know, I told him we didn't have a great sense of anything, that we were really going to lean on them. It's their city, and I talked to Joe Ingles. He called me kind of to tell me that all their players were feeling really uneasy about everything. And so I told Chris and Joe, you know, we trust you guys, we trust the league, whatever makes the most sense. So ultimately, obviously the game was postponed. I totally agree with the decision. Everything should be about safety and concern for not only the players and the fans, but everybody here in Minneapolis with what's going on.
How much have you been following the news?
I've been following everything. It's very sad. This has always been a great stop on the NBA tour. I love the city of Minneapolis. The people here are wonderful, and it's very sad what's happening. I feel for the city. There's a pall that has been cast over the city. You can feel it, and you know, a lot of people are suffering. Obviously, loss of life is the number one concern. Those families will never get you know, their family members back, and you know, when all the unrest settles down, whenever that is, those family members won't be returning home, and that's devastating.
I guess, what has the emotion been like just around the team as all this is unfolding? How would you describe that?
I think, you know, we met yesterday during the actually 2 days ago, I'm sorry. We met when we arrived. We had a film session from the night before, and we could see 20,000 people from our hotel view, you know, from my room. You could see the streets were body to body. And so we met as a team and, you know, talked a little bit about what was going on and, you know, just to be safe, be careful. And then obviously we thought we were going to play yesterday and didn't meet because of the time of the game. And then we started to get word, and that's when, you know, some of the players were already over here warming up, and so a lot of them stayed and just got workouts in, that sort of thing, and then, you know, waited until today, and here we are.
And there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people protesting outside. I was wondering if you ever gone through anything like this, had a situation like this occur during your playing or coaching career?
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced a few things like this. I played a game my very first year in the NBA with Phoenix. I played a game in Miami that was canceled because of riots that were happening outside the arena. We had a game canceled or postponed 2 years ago in Salt Lake City when Decky passed away the night before the game, and the league postpone the game, so that we could grieve and handle, our team and ourselves. And, there's a COVID type feel with what's happened the last couple of days, where we're kind of all stuck in the hotel, and a very eerie vibe, in the city and just in everything that's happening. But I think the general feeling is just one of sadness for Minneapolis, for the city. They've been through a lot, and we empathize with the citizens here, with the Wolves franchise and their fans. It's a wonderful place. As I said, I've always felt a great vibe here. The expression "Minnesota nice" is a real thing. People here really, really care about each other and take care of their neighbors and go out of their way to help one another. And it's a beautiful city, and it's just tough to see everybody really going through a lot of angst and anger and sadness and grief.
I've been very outspoken about this administration and the things going on. If there is a path forward, what does it look like in your eyes about what's going on and how it can be addressed moving forward?
And I think, my concern as an American, we're not perfect. We never have been perfect. Ideals have been in the right place for a long time, our values. And, I think no matter what side of the aisle you stand on, I think remembering the values that come with the Constitution, that come with citizenship, the values of looking after each other are so important right now, just because of the extremism that we can feel from all over the place. People are so angry. And, there should be an appeal to our better angels to look after one another and to recognize what's happening. We're being divided by media for profit, by misinformation. There's so much out there that is really difficult for all of us to sort of reconcile. And so you have to, in times like these, you have to lean on values and who you are and who you want to be, either as an individual or as a country. And I think that's the biggest thing, and that's what's so sad about all this is, like, we're at each other's throats right now. And, you can't just say I'm right and the other person's wrong. Not in this current climate of nonstop news flooding at us, and it's hard to decipher what's real and what's not, what's true and what's not true. People arguing over the exact same video and saying this happened, no, that happened. It is a confusing time to be alive and to be an American, and so what I would appeal to everyone is to remember what our Constitution stands for, what our values are, and what that means to how we treat each other and our fellow citizens.
Alex, Pretti continues to grow in South Minneapolis. Hundreds of people walking through that area today to pay their respects, many leaving behind signs, candles, and flowers around that memorial site.
Here's what we know about the man shot and killed by a Border Patrol agent, Alex Pretti. He was an ICU nurse at the VA. Pretti had been participating in protests after Renee was shot and killed by an ICE agent on January 7th. Pretti's father says his son cared about people deeply and was very upset with what was happening in Minneapolis and across the U.S. with ICE. Pretti was a U.S. citizen and had no criminal record. Alex Pretti was 37 years old. We thank you for joining us here at 5. I'm Randy Meyer.
And I'm Kelsey Carlson. This is now the third shooting involving federal agents this year. We want to go through the timeline as it unfolded. Shots were fired Saturday morning around 9 a.m. just south of the intersection of West 26th Street and Nicollet Avenue. This is just a short drive south of downtown Minneapolis.
There are several videos showing the deadly shooting. The one you're about to see shows the moments before the fatal shots.
We do have to warn you, these videos are graphic and disturbing, and again, we won't show the fatal shots, but you can listen.
Again, that was one angle showing the final moments leading up to when the shots were fired.
And this is a look at protests and gatherings today at the Government Plaza in downtown Minneapolis. Hundreds of people gathering to bring attention to the shootings of Alex Pretti and Renee Good. You can see people carrying signs and marching in the cold weather.
It's weird to go to work and pretend that everything is normal and get in trouble for being off at all, seeming off, when this is happening. I mean, in my little town even, I'm not that far out. I'm 20 minutes from here. But even then, they're everywhere. ICE is everywhere. So it's hard to act normal.
A large crowd also marched through downtown after gathering at Government Plaza as well.
So here's a good one right here. Minneapolis shooting judge rules DHS cannot destroy scene video.
Has blocked the Trump administration from potentially destroying or altering any evidence that exists related to Saturday's fatal shooting of Alex Pretti.
Now, this comes as Minnesota makes its latest move to investigate the incident. Our So-Young Kim joins us now. And So-Young, the state says this was an unprecedented request after attempts to gather evidence at the scene were denied.
That's right. Attorney General Keith Ellison says he filed a motion for a temporary restraining order last night, asking the court to take immediate action to preserve the evidence. After 37-year-old Alex Pretti was shot and killed by Border Patrol in Minneapolis yesterday morning, now there's a legal battle over the investigation. Minnesota's Bureau of Criminal Apprehension is the state agency that handles police shootings. BCA Superintendent Drew Evans says federal officers blocked his investigators from the shooting scene even after obtaining a signed judicial warrant. So Attorney General Keith Ellison filed a motion last night asking the court to preserve evidence collected by federal officers. The judge swiftly granted the motion. In separate press conferences this afternoon, both the BCA and Border Patrol Chief Greg Bolvino addressed where the investigation stands.
At the BCA, we are going to continue to investigate this shooting based on whatever evidence we're able to get, and we appreciate the Attorney General assisting us with the temporary restraining order to make sure that the federal government is retaining evidence that will be available, we would assume, to us at a later time.
The investigation is going to uncover all those facts, things like how many shots were fired, where were the weapons located. All those facts are going to come out in the investigation. I wasn't there wrestling that assaultive subject that was assaulting Border Patrol agents. I wasn't there wrestling him myself, so I'm not going to speculate. I'm going to wait for that investigation.
And as you heard there, a change in tone from Border Patrol Chief Bolvino, who shared stronger words on Pretti's intent just yesterday. And we'll have more on the latest in the investigation coming up at 9. Live in studio, So-Young Kim, Fox 9.
All right, So-Young, thank you. New tonight.
We're now learning that Alex Pretti had a violent encounter with federal agents a week prior to Border Patrol agents shooting and killing him as he was on the scene of an ICE operation, simply filming it with his cell phone. Now, we all know about this because sources have spoken to CNN to let them know that federal immigration officers have, in fact, been collecting personal information about protesters in Minneapolis, and they are keeping that information in some sort of database. In other words, the federal government appears to believe that they are at war with the American people who are practicing their First Amendment rights. Now, I'm sure you've got a lot to say about this, Cenk. Give me your 2 cents.
Okay, yeah. Number one, there's a little bit of irony here because we're getting a lot of folks, including on the left, to root for local law enforcement, and unfortunately, the federal government is blocking some of the investigations that the state cops want to do. And then I'm going to explain to you guys, after Annie gives you the facts, what is the law and what is normal and what is abnormal. And there is actually plenty of things that they're doing that isn't still in the normal category, but we'll tell you what's in the abnormal category.
All right, so let's actually begin with what we know about Pretti's previous encounter with federal agents, which again took place a week prior to him getting shot and killed by Border Patrol agents. So it is unclear how Pretti first came to the attention of federal authorities, but sources told CNN that about a week before his death, he suffered a broken rib when a group of federal officers tackled him while he was protesting their attempt to detain other individuals. So he has been obviously involved in these demonstrations in Minneapolis. And when we look into, well, what was that encounter like? Like, what fueled this interaction between Pretti and the federal agents? This is what CNN reports. The earlier incident started when he stopped his car after observing ICE agents chasing what he described as a family on foot and began shouting and blowing his whistle, according to a source who asked not to be named out of fear of retribution. Pretti later told the source that 5 agents tackled him and one leaned on his back, an encounter that left him with a broken rib. The agents quickly released him at the scene. Pretti was later given medication consistent with treating a broken rib, according to records reviewed by CNN. Now, CNN, of course, reached out to DHS asking about documentation of this interaction with Pretti. They claim that no such documentation exists. I'm going to get back to the topic of the federal agents collecting personal information about protesters in just a minute, but a question you might have is, well, is it considered legal for the demonstrators to blow whistles loudly to alert others, potentially those who are undocumented, that ICE is on the scene and that they should, stay away? I did look into this. Our team looked into this, and legal experts seem to have a consensus here and agree that it is considered protected under the First Amendment. I'll give you a few examples. This is a quote from attorney Tracy Roy, and this is in the Minnesota Star Tribune. Physically intervening with ICE activity or obstructing justice is illegal, but whistles are considered a protected form of free speech. Here's another statement. If you're in a public space using whistles to signal that law enforcement officers are present and recording law enforcement activities, are expressive activities protected by the First Amendment. That's according to Gregory Magarian, seems like an Armenian lawyer, over at the Washington University in St. Louis. And then Butler County Sheriff Richard Jones, who has 30 officers credentialed to perform ICE arrests, said that he has no problem with people using whistles. Quote, "They can blow their little whistles and jump up and down," Jones said. "I don't care."
Yeah.
Nice.
So we're going to talk more about this a little bit later in the show, but speaking of things that are legal and not legal, there is federal supremacy. So if the federal investigators wanted, they could take over the case. If he's going to be charged at all, the shooters in this Pretti case, they could ask for it to be removed to federal courts, but they cannot block the state from investigating it. And guess what they're doing now? They're blocking the state from investigating it. So that's a huge problem right there. But to me, for the main purpose of this story, there's like three versions of Alex Pretti, and I want to go through them real quick, and I'll tell you which one I believe. I suppose you could say there's four, but one was the original version put out by the federal government, which is he's a terrorist, he's an assassin, and he was going to massacre the Border Patrol agents there. So now literally no one believes that. Not even the most extreme right-wing person believes that. I'm going to get to them in a second, but that was an obvious over-the-top lie by the Trump administration. And if you're on the right or you voted for Trump, note that they do outrageous lies, and now things that you know to be lies.
And I'm going to give you some insight based on a scoop in Axios about how that narrative of him being a dangerous terrorist or assassin came about. There was some fighting internally with the Trump administration, but go ahead.
Yeah. Number two is the right-wing version of Alex Pretti, which is, oh, you see this, he's a provocateur, maybe Antifa, so not a terrorist, not an assassin, but a guy who's causing trouble. And to them, the broken ribs shows, aha, he deserved it. Why? Because he's constantly agitating, and how dare he protest the U.S. government? Well, first of all, that's literally the most American right there is. It's in the First Amendment. There's no question about it. And of course, we've been through this 100 times. When the right protests, they love it, and they think it's the most important thing, and he can't get shut down. Same thing on the left. So, but they say because his ribs were broken earlier, that makes the shooting him 10 times more justified.
What?
Because they think he's an agitator. So he was at another protest. So since he was at another protest and we kicked his ass earlier and the federal officers broke his ribs, then now a second protest? You're an American citizen and you want to go to two protests?
Can't have it.
How dare you? So then they shoot him and kill him. Now the third version of Pretti, I suppose you could have a fourth one that's like relatively neutral. He's a good guy, goes to a protest, or not even good, just goes to a protest. You don't have any view on him, I suppose.
To be fair, we know how dangerous those ICU nurses at the VA happen to be.
Oh, so yeah, watch out for the nurses.
It.
Yeah. So, and then, but there's the third version is the one that I believe in, and I suspect a lot of you do, and I know that it's going to drive the right wing crazy, and good. I'm glad it does. I don't care. And we're allowed to have different points of view on it. I think the guy's an absolute American hero. I think that he got killed trying to protect two women that had been pushed and pepper sprayed. I think that's the definition of masculinity, is when you go and protect women. And he never drew his weapon. He never did anything that he could have done, but he didn't. And he was there trying to protect American rights. And so that's our view of it and the way we see it. I know that for a lot of other people are like, no, this doesn't have to do with American rights, but we really think that it does. We think that they are out there trying to protect their, the people that they live with in their neighborhood, and they're also trying to protect our First Amendment rights, and in Pretti's case, a Second Amendment right. And the fact that he went to another protest and had his ribs broken, but still came out to protect others, I think they should build a statue of him. I really do.
And on top of that, Cenk, he is acutely aware of the physical violence that will be carried out against him. And so to me, that indicates that he is less likely to engage in any type of threat or, indication that he might physically harm federal agents, knowing that any move that might be misinterpreted by those agents will be used as justification to carry out violence against him. But I do want to just quickly mention something that Axios broke today in regard to how this narrative of Pretti being some sort of predator, some sort of terrorist, some sort of assassin came about. So Axios writes that immediately after Pretti was fatally shot in Minneapolis about 10:05 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday, administration officials in Washington knew that they had a disaster on their hands, but had little information. The officers directly involved in the shooting all shut up and got lawyers real quick, so there wasn't a lot of information, one source briefed said in a statement. Now, the CBP, Customs and Border Patrol agents or officers on the ground, furnished a report that White House officials told Axios left officials with the belief that Pretti had brandished a gun. Miller, meaning Stephen Miller, heard gun and knew what the narrative would be. Pretti came to massacre cops, a source briefed on the process of assembling the press statement said. So in other words, at the heart of the lies is Stephen Miller. Then you have the ICE bimbo, Kristi Noem, just regurgitating what their resident Nazi had to say about Alex Pretti. And then the lies, fester until everyone sees the video and they know that they're lies.
So, Anna, to me, the most interesting part of that story is that they're not bothering to look at the video. They're not bothering to hear out the evidence or wait for the evidence.
They don't care to.
Like Stephen Miller or really almost anyone at the White House, according to that story, comes out and goes, whoa, guys, we don't even know what happened. Let's figure out what happened first, and then we'll put out a statement based on the facts. No, they go, oh, somebody got shot and they had a gun. Good enough. I don't need to see the video. I don't need to see what happened because I'm going to invent a story anyway. You see what I'm saying? At the White House, they're having a meeting about which story to invent, which narrative to push forward, and it's totally unrelated to what actually happened. In fact, we did a story last week about how Kash Patel is getting a lot of heat again inside the FBI because one of the things that he did after the Charlie Kirk shooting
was cover up for pedophiles.
Well, not only that, but in this particular case, they say he and Dan Bongino were obsessed with what are we going to put on X? Well, how are we going to control the narrative? And the other FBI agents are like, well, don't we have to figure out who did it first? And at that point, no one had even been caught. They're like, shouldn't we be busy worrying about how to catch the guy instead of what narrative to push on X?
Can we please have some adults in the room? Like, we're talking about the FBI director, guys. This is not a small role, okay? And the idea that he's more concerned with how he's going to come across on social media as opposed to how effective he is on the job is mind-numbingly infuriating, okay? It's just so frustrating. Now, I want to go back to the topic of protesters being included in some sort of database that federal agents are tracking them in. Because, DHS seems to kind of deny that that's what's going on here. They're just saying, no, we've formalized the process. Like, we have a specific form now where we will jot down the information of someone who is an agitator. But clearly, based on what we've heard actual ICE agents and Border Patrol agents say to demonstrators who are simply recording their phones, in fact, there was one incident that went viral just recently, it does appear that they are collecting data on individuals who aren't causing any problems at all, including taking photos of their license plates. And on top of that, you have Tom Homan, who is on the record calling for this type of documentation. He was quoted as saying this: "One thing I'm pushing for right now, we're going to create a database where those people that are arrested for interference, impeding, and assault, we're going to make them famous. We're going to put their face on TV. We're going to let their employers in their neighborhoods, in their schools, know who these people are." Now, if we're talking about people who are breaking the law, if we're talking about people who are carrying out acts of violence against federal agents, which is illegal, obviously, I have no problem with these individuals getting arrested and being prosecuted for that. That is the correct thing to do. You don't have to execute them right then and there, right? You're not the judge, juror, or executioner, but you should arrest them and they should face prosecution. What we're talking about here, though, is ordinary people, ordinary Americans feeling the need to be part of these demonstrations. They're not violent. They're not doing anything wrong. They're filming with their phones. They're not impeding anything. And just the nature of them recording sets these federal agents off so much that they either treat them violently or they collect data on them. Again, DHS denies that they have any record of the incident involving Pretti, but a memo sent earlier this month, 2 agents temporarily assigned to the city asked them to capture all images, license plates, identifications, and general information on hotels, agitators, protesters, etc., so we can capture it all in one consolidated form. And that's according to a correspondence that was reviewed by CNN.
Yep. So look, last 2 things for me is one is saying we're allowed to record law enforcement. There's nothing wrong with that. And the second one, I'll farm out to one of our members on tyt.com. Get involved in the show, by the way, guys. We love doing the show with you guys. tyt.com/join. Don Dada Dragon said, if there isn't a noise ordinance, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to blow a whistle. Freedom of expression is a right. Yeah, is there like an asterisk in the Constitution I'm unaware of? I've
seen some on the right argue that the fact that some of these demonstrators are blowing whistles in order to alert individuals that ICE is conducting raids is a form of impeding ICE operations. That is not true. So I looked into that. I made sure that, we looked into it as a team, and we found numerous examples of legal experts saying, no, that is protected under the First Amendment. It's the same as, let's say, there are apps available where you can download it on your phone and it'll alert you if there is a speed trap, meaning law enforcement is carrying out operations to catch people who are driving too quickly, too fast.
That's actually built into a lot of the GPSs now.
It is.
So apparently almost all Americans are impeding law enforcement.
Right.
And can we not say, here come the po-po anymore?
I mean, it turns out you can. That is protected under the First Amendment. Yeah.
Every time you ring the bell below.
Watching this right now, and I don't know, maybe you're watching it with curiosity,
bewilderment,
horror, scorn, or sympathy. I've got a question for all of you. What side do you want to be on?
Our top story tonight, ongoing reaction after another deadly shooting involving federal agents here in Minnesota. Thank you for following our continuing coverage. I'm Kelsey Carlson.
And I'm Randy Meyer. The shooting happened in Minneapolis' Whittier neighborhood yesterday, and it was captured on video.
We want to show you a slowed down version of that video without the fatal shot, so we want to warn you that it does show the moments leading up to this.
The video shows federal agents wrestling with 37-year-old Alex Pretti. You can then see a federal agent remove what appears to be a gun that Pretti had a legal permit to carry before he is shot several times. He died there at the scene. 2 sworn statements from witnesses at the scene have been entered into an ongoing lawsuit filed by the ACLU.
One came from a resident who was only a few feet away. She says that she saw Pretti in the street filming ICE agents. Agents told them to get back, and then she said she saw a woman get pushed down and Pretti being pepper sprayed. And then she says, quote, the agents pulled the man on the ground. I didn't see him touch any of them. He was not even turned toward them, adding, I didn't see him with a gun. They threw him on the ground. 4 or 5 agents had him on the ground, and they just started shooting him. They shot him so many times. The other sworn affidavit came from a physician who lives in the neighborhood and says she woke up to honking and screaming.
She went on to say she went to the scene, identified herself as a physician, and asked to assess the victim. At first, they didn't let her through, but after a few moments, one agent patted her down and then did let her through, saying, the victim had at least 3 bullet wounds in his back. I asked ICE agents to turn the victim from his side to his back. From that position, I saw an additional gunshot wound on the victim's upper left chest and another possible gunshot wound to his neck. I checked for a pulse. I did not feel one. I immediately began CPR. Now, overnight, a judge granted a temporary restraining order that says the federal government must preserve all evidence related to the fatal shooting.
And this after the Minnesota BCA says DHS prevented them from accessing the shooting scene.
Our So Young Kim joins us now. And So Young, the state says this was an unprecedented request after attempts to gather evidence at the scene were denied.
That's right. Attorney General Keith Ellison says they filed a motion for a temporary restraining order last night, asking the court to take immediate action to preserve evidence. 37-year-old nurse Alex Pretti was shot and killed by Border Patrol in Minneapolis Saturday morning while protesting federal immigration enforcement. Now there's a legal battle over the investigation.
The BCA is the state's investigative agency, and it is their job to investigate crime. They have a specialized unit to investigate the use of force cases.
BCA Superintendent Drew Evans says federal agents blocked his investigators from the shooting scene even after obtaining a signed judicial warrant. This prompted state officials to file a motion last night asking the court to preserve evidence collected by federal agencies. Within hours, a judge granted the request.
The temporary restraining order to make sure that the federal government is retaining evidence that will be available, we would assume, to us at a later time.
On Sunday morning, BCA agents were able to access the scene.
They were continuing to collect evidence that they've seen. They're also doing some canvassing of the neighborhoods.
When asked about the incident on Sunday, Border Patrol Chief Greg Bolvino took a different tone than what several top federal officials had said just hours after the deadly shooting.
As far as the number of shots, the number of agents involved, that, again, is going to come out in the investigation. I'm not going to speculate on who did what, when they did it, how they did it, or what exactly occurred there. I'm going to wait for the investigation to let me know what happened.
And a court hearing is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon in federal court in St. Paul. Live in studio tonight, So Young Kim, Fox.
Administration officials have said that it is unlawful to carry a firearm at protests and demonstrations, even if somebody is legally permitted to do so.
That issue is at the center of the debate over yesterday's deadly shooting of Alex Pretti. As Fox 9 investigator Paul Bloom tells us tonight, the opinion expressed by federal authorities has not held up in court.
The Trump administration doubling down Sunday on challenging protesters' rights to legally carry a firearm.
You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. You don't have that right to break the law and incite violence.
Local officials confirmed Alex Pretti was lawfully permitted to carry a gun when he was fatally shot by Border Patrol agents Saturday morning.
When someone makes the choice to come into an active law enforcement scene, interfere, obstruct, delay, or assault law enforcement officers, and they bring a weapon to do that, that is a choice that individual made.
It is not the first time the Department of Homeland Security has challenged Second Amendment rights of those exercising their First Amendment rights during immigration operations. Federal agents arrested and charged 2 people who had lawfully carried loaded firearms to a Chicago protest last year, according to court records reviewed by the Fox 9 investigators. At the time, the U.S. attorney said in that case, quote, "These are potentially explosive situations. And if people start bringing firearms or they think they can bring up firearms, I think that's a reflection on his dangerousness and the need to protect the public in addition to protecting the safety of the agents." But that claim did not hold up in court after a federal grand jury took the rare step of declining to indict those protesters.
This notion that you are somehow fair game by carrying a firearm in public seems incredibly contrary to the Second Amendment.
Rick Hodgson is a former prosecutor and attorney with the Minnesota Post Board who oversaw investigations into law enforcement use of force encounters.
If I am a permit holder and lawfully allowed to carry a gun, am I allowed to show up with that gun at a protest, at a demonstration, to observe law enforcement in action? Am I allowed to do that?
Minnesota law makes it a crime to participate in a riot while you are armed with a firearm. Minnesota law does not make it a crime to carry a firearm in public and watch the behavior of others, including law enforcement officials.
The debate over carrying a firearm to a protest of any kind exploded on the weekend political talk shows.
When an officer tells you to back off and gives you orders, you should comply and explain. You shouldn't show up with weapons.
And on social media, where an assistant U.S. attorney in California wrote on X, quote, "If you approach law enforcement with a gun, there is a high likelihood they will be legally justified in shooting you. Don't do it." The NRA clapped back that this sentiment is, quote, "dangerous and wrong," and that responsible public voices should be awaiting a full investigation, not demonizing law-abiding citizens. And the leader of one of the staunchest gun rights groups in Minnesota shared his concerns with the rhetoric in a live interview with Fox 9.
You know, he has a permit to carry. It's not unlawful to be carrying while you're exercising your First Amendment. You don't have to pick between which rights you exercise. It's not a crime to be near police officers. It's not a crime to be in a protest with a firearm.
And while Saturday's deadly shooting brought plenty of fresh debate and discussion to this issue, this 8-year-old post found some fresh traction online. Quote, "The Second Amendment is not for hunting. It is not for self-protection. It is there to ensure that free people can defend themselves if, God forbid, government became tyrannical and turned against its citizens." The man who posted this, the late Charlie Kirk. Paul Bloom, Fox 9.
Tonight, lawmakers in Minnesota are reacting to yesterday's shooting and the ongoing investigation into the matter. On social media, Republican Representative and House Majority Whip Tom Emmer said, in part, "Unlike my Democrat colleagues, I'm going to let law enforcement conduct their investigation and not jump to asinine conclusions. We are grateful no Border Patrol officers were harmed." Republican State Representative Walter Hudson used social media to claim Alex Pretti brandished a gun while impeding federal law enforcement.
And when asked, Representative Hudson could not provide evidence to support his claim and didn't provide further comment to Fox 9. In addition, a community note was added to his post stating, quote, "There is zero video evidence or witness statements that the victim brandished a firearm in any way." And you can see that addition on the bottom of the tweet there. Hudson also later posted on X stating that, quote, "We don't require a video. We have an official statement from DHS, which has not been disproven." But in that official statement,
That's what these stupid mega righties do. These Trump supporters. These liberal, they're stupid, man. They just spin the narrative and just go whatever their little handler son say. Yeah, who's your daddy? You believe me now? Crazy.
Law enforcement outside of a hotel believed to house ICE agents.
Chinu Her is in our live center with what we have learned at this point. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Tom and Kelly. We know the Minnesota Department of Public Safety says the State Patrol, DNR, and Minneapolis Police were called to the Home 2 Suites Hotel. That's on University Avenue in Dinkytown last night. Officials say a small group of protesters had broken a few windows and graffitied anti-ICE messages on the side of the building. The state says federal agents then deployed chemical irritants to clear out that group that was there. This hotel is one of many that's been targeted over the last few weeks by protesters, believing it to be where ICE agents are staying during Operation Metro Surge. Now, when our cameras got out there, we did spot a few broken windows, which have now been boarded up. It is important to note that the overwhelming majority of protests and demonstrations that we've seen across the Twin Cities in the last few weeks have been peaceful. So we'll continue to just follow some of these demonstrations throughout the area as we see more and more of them pop up around us, guys.
Right. All right. Chinu Her first there with the
concerning the increased immigration enforcement in the Twin Cities.
Today, Fox 9 has learned that Border Patrol Commander Greg Bolvino is leaving Minnesota imminently. The timeline has not been confirmed yet. Neither has the exact number of agents leaving with Bolvino.
This comes after another Minnesotan was shot and killed by federal agents on Saturday. Alex Pretti was shot Saturday morning around 9 a.m. at the corner of 26th and Nicollet. The memorial there has been growing since the scene cleared. Pretti had a gun and he had a legal permit to carry. Homeland Security initially said on Saturday that Pretti approached agents with a gun. Yesterday, they would not comment because the shooting was under investigation. This is the second person killed by an agent this year and the third shooting by agents in as many weeks.
And these changes on the ground, as well as changes in tone today from the White House, coming very quickly after some GOP voices began questioning ICE tactics.
Republican governors, senators, and representatives among those now calling for a transparent investigation. Fox 9's Rob Olson joining us, and this is a sharp change from the past few weeks.
Yeah, certainly in what you're hearing. We didn't hear prominent Republicans openly questioning President Trump's immigration crackdown after the shooting death of Renee Good a few weeks ago. But now comes the second death at the hand of immigration agents. Even clearer video evidence here that has quickly brought pressure on the White House from its own party.
I think there's a sea change going on, and what we knew was happening in Minnesota, whether you're Democrat or Republican, that this was getting out of hand.
Democratic U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar told me it's the videos of the death of Alex Pretti that have been so powerful. Multiple frame-by-frame breakdowns, including from gun rights organizations that dispute the official narrative from the White House, have been a huge part of what's pushed Republicans to publicly question ICE tactics in ways she's not heard them do before.
So the pushback yesterday was intense. Finally, we had some Republican senators, House members, gun owners, the NRA, some local legislators saying enough. We need a transparent investigation, but a number of them saying this is not okay.
The boiling point also seen here, defense attorney Chris Mattel running as a Republican for Minnesota governor and polling well, pulling out of the race Monday in part because the ICE crackdown, which he called a disaster. Not wanting to be part of a Republican Party, he said, that brought a campaign of retribution to Minnesota.
United States citizens, particularly those of color, live in fear. United States citizens are carrying papers to prove their citizenship. That's wrong.
As for Klobuchar, who's still considering jumping into the governor's race to replace Walz, she said quiet concerns from the other side of the aisle are just now suddenly louder.
Had you been hearing any of that GOP concern prior to Saturday? Had it been starting to bubble up?
I had some discussions with Republican senators, so some of it was out there. But honestly, I think yesterday was the breaking point.
Now, we've also reached out several times to Minnesota's Republican congresspeople, our congressional delegation, to ask them their stance on this investigation, if they believe the Minnesota BCA should be included, and to get their response to the Homeland Security statements that came after the shooting that were then apparently contradicted by all the video evidence. But so far, we've got no response. Rubbles.
You know, I think it's cool that people are doing that, doing a memorial bike ride for Alex Pretti.
Alex Pretti found a sense of community at a bike shop in South Minneapolis.
Maury Glover shows us how the shop plans to remember him this weekend.
He was absolutely an advocate for getting people to ride bicycles.
Alex Pretti was an avid outdoorsman who loved mountain biking and a frequent customer at Angry Catfish Bicycle Shop in South Minneapolis. Now, the community Pretti rolled with in group rides around the Twin Cities is ready to roll for him.
Alex is a cyclist, and if you're a cyclist, you're a part of this community.
Angry Catfish is helping organize a 10-mile bike ride in Pretti's honor this Saturday, with stops at Pretti's Memorial at 26th and Lyndale and Renee Good's Memorial at 34th and Portland, before ending with a moment of silence at the Minneapolis VA Hospital, where Pretti worked as an ICU nurse.
I think someone that is that cheerful and loving and has touched so many people needs to be honored.
Organizers say the bicycling community has many spokes, and similar memorial rides are being planned in more than a half dozen other cities around the country, including New York, Boston, and Atlanta, with more possibly on the way, both to mourn Pretti and to show solidarity with his mission of getting ice out of Minnesota.
Folks have asked, like, how many people do you anticipate showing up? And I think it's between 50 and 1,000 people. I don't know, you know, but Minnesota shows up no matter the weather, for sure.
Organizers say there's no better way to mourn the loss of someone who was so caring than to do something he loved.
Bicycles are magic. We think it's important in this moment to share that magic with the world.
The memorial ride for Alex Pretti will meet at Washburn Fair Oaks Park near the Minneapolis Institute of Art at 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. There's no sign up. Anyone who shows up can take part. In Minneapolis, Maury Glover, Fox 9.
There were court hearings in Minneapolis and St. Paul today. Both were related to Operation Metro Surge. Mary McGuire takes a look at each of those cases.
Well, today there were two federal court hearings on both sides of the river, all involving Operation Metro Surge. Now, the first took place in Minneapolis, where a judge heard arguments after the state of Minnesota sued to end the immigration surge happening across the Twin Cities. That suit was filed by Attorney General Keith Ellison and the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Attorneys for the state asked the court to issue a temporary restraining order, calling what's happening a federal occupation of more than 3,000 masked agents that has led to racial profiling, illegal detentions, and warrantless entries. They called the operation a violation of the 10th Amendment, which grants the states equal sovereignty over local issues. For its part, the DOJ has called the lawsuit frivolous. After the court hearing, we heard from the AG.
I stand here with Renee Good in my heart and in my mind, and with Alex Pretti in my heart, in my mind, and their families. Together with other people who have suffered racial profiling, unfair detention, together with every business person whose business has been shuttered because of this, on behalf of every student and every parent who can't get their kids to school because they are afraid of the federal government.
The next hearing involved the preservation of evidence following the shooting of Alex Pretti on Saturday morning. The BCA, which typically investigates all law enforcement shootings in the state, wanted to investigate the incident, but was denied access to the scene twice by the feds, despite having a warrant. Court documents detail the FBI's evidence response team dispatched to the scene, but they were not able to collect evidence using their normal procedures because of the crowds gathering in the area of 26th and Nicollet. We do know that Pretti's firearm and his cell phone were both taken into evidence. We also learned in court that there is body camera footage of the fatal encounter. Shortly after the shooting, there were widely circulated photos of Pretti's alleged firearm, and the state attorneys raised some serious questions about those photos and the way that the evidence was preserved. An attorney for the federal government argued they are preserving the evidence in this case anyways and will continue to preserve it as long as the investigation is ongoing, so the court order is not necessary. It's still unclear when the judges in both of these cases will issue rulings on both of these matters. Reporting in Minneapolis, Mary McGuire, Fox 9.
Also tonight, a federal judge says he will rule shortly on a lawsuit seeking to put a stop to the Department of Homeland Security's operation focusing on newly arrived refugees here in Minnesota. The Trump administration dubbed that initiative Operation Paris to re-examine and potentially deport refugees who were previously allowed legal entry here in the U.S., but had not yet received their green cards. Officials have said it's an effort aimed at cracking down on immigration fraud. Attorneys representing several detained refugees argue the new policy is illegal. They're seeking class action status to cover everyone in Minnesota's refugee community who may be potentially impacted. Those same attorneys say as many as 100 refugees living in Minnesota have been detained in recent weeks.
Our coworkers, they are our neighbors, they are people who have done everything right. And this administration's detention of them is retributive. President Trump announced that he was seeking retribution against Minnesota, and it is driven by animus against Somalis and other immigrants who President Trump has called garbage. It does not have a lawful foundation.
The DHS reports there are some 5,600 newly arrived refugees in the state of Minnesota who were previously vetted but not in possession of their green cards. Faith leaders across the bridge say Wisconsin stands with Minnesota.
We take you to a prayer vigil that they held in Milwaukee tonight.
Plus, walkouts continue. What students at the University of Minnesota hope theirs achieves.
Oh, we got some good news.
Of escalation, there is a new sign, several new signs that the federal government might be pulling back on the ICE operations here in Minnesota.
There are some reports this morning as some agents and the man running the Operation Metro Surge are about to leave our state.
Saquon Live Force in Minneapolis with more on this shift coming from the federal government this morning. Hi, Say. Hey, good morning to you. Lots of developments in this. As I broke for you in the 6 a.m. hour, sources are now confirming Greg Bolvino, who has kind of been the face of these immigration operations, has now been demoted from his role as Border Patrol Commander at Large. We are also learning that he will be returning to his former job to, quote, lead the implementation of the Trump administration's immigration policy in California. It is worth noting here, as you mentioned, those federal agents are expected to leave Minnesota today. We just don't know how many federal agents and also whether ICE agents will be included in that departure. Right now, there are 3,000 agents here in Minnesota. 2,000 of them are with ICE and the other 1,000 are with Border Patrol. We do know, though, Border Patrol Commander Greg Bolvino, who's once again been the face of these immigration crackdowns, will also be leaving Minnesota today. This comes after the governor and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey talked to the president on the phone yesterday. Mayor Jacob Frey said yesterday, in part, I spoke with President Trump this afternoon and appreciated the conversation. I expressed how much Minneapolis has benefited from our immigrant communities and was clear that my main ask is that Operation Metro Surge needs to end. The president agreed that the present situation cannot continue. Governor Walz also said in a tweet yesterday, saying in part, the president agreed to look into reducing the number of federal agents in Minnesota and to talk to DHS about ensuring the Minnesota BCA is able to conduct an independent investigation as would ordinarily be the case. Today, Border Czar Tom Homan will also be arriving here in Minnesota. Now, Homan comes with law enforcement experience, working with both Republicans and Democrats. In fact, he was named Associate Director of ICE by President Barack Obama back in 2013, Director of ICE by President Trump in 2017, and most recently Border Czar, also named by the president in 2024 to be in charge of all deportations. According to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, Tom Homan will now become the point of contact on the ground here in Minneapolis. We also heard from Mayor Jacob Frey yesterday, and he says he will be meeting with Homan today to discuss next steps. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks so much. That's our Saquon reporting.
Deep divisions between the federal government and local leaders over the investigation into the deadly shooting of 37-year-old Alex Pretti on a Minneapolis street yesterday.
Yeah, a judge has now ordered federal officials to preserve the evidence. And our Audrey Rousseau joins us now with what exactly that means and where the investigation stands right now.
Yeah, that's right. We got the news around midnight, and this motion to preserve evidence was filed by the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, two agencies that say they've been blocked by the feds from starting their usual use of force investigation. Now, the federal judge's order includes any evidence that agents removed from the scene and evidence that they took into their exclusive custody. In the filing from the Minnesota officials, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and Border Patrol Commander Greg Bolvino are named among a long list of defendants. The next court hearing is scheduled for tomorrow at 2 p.m. And this comes after local and state investigators say they were cut off from the evidence and the case files in the Renee Good shooting death just 2 weeks ago. Back to you.
Thank you for that update. And after the shooting, the Department of Homeland Security said Pretti was approaching agents with a gun and that they acted in self-defense.
Yeah, but videos and various views of the incident tell a whole different story. Our Lure Goose breaks it down.
37-year-old Minneapolis man and U.S. citizen Alex Pretti was protesting ICE and recording video in the middle of the street at Nicole Avenue and 26th Street when one video shows him try to help a woman who was pushed down by a federal agent. Video shows an agent spray Pretti in the face. He struggles with several of them and they shoot him multiple times. After the shooting, Homeland Security officials shared a photo of a handgun and magazines they recovered from Pretti. Secretary Kristi Noem characterized it like this.
This individual went and impeded their law enforcement operations, attacked those officers, had a weapon on him, and multiple dozens of rounds of ammunition, wishing to inflict harm on these officers, coming brandishing like that.
But Pretti never brandishes the gun or even reaches for it in any of the videos publicly posted. And look at this. A federal officer pulls Pretti's gun from the back of his pants on this video as the agent next to him draws his weapon. That agent then fires all or most of the 10 shots we can hear after Pretti was disarmed right in front of him. Normally, the state's Bureau of Criminal Apprehension would begin a use of force investigation.
But unfortunately, in these recent events, others outside of the state are making decisions that does not occur.
BCA Superintendent Drew Evans says after federal agents blocked them from the crime scene, they got a warrant from a judge. Remarkable, considering the crime scene is a public street.
But we did that attempting to have judicial approval to enter this scene to gather evidence. We were once again blocked by federal authorities to go in and do that scene examination.
Noem made it clear that Homeland Security investigations would be conducting any investigation of their own federal officer, while Evans and Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty are encouraging anyone with videos or other evidence to send it to them as well.
State officials say they do not know the identity of the agent who shot Pretti. They say federal authorities will not share that information. Border Patrol Chief Greg Bolvino says the officer who fired those shots is a Border Patrol agent with 8 years of experience and extensive training.
Well, chaotic moments following the shooting as federal agents left the scene yesterday morning, dropping chemical irritants on protesters and bystanders. So this is what our crews captured as some of those agents drove away along First Avenue South. As you can see, crowds following behind them, shouting as the ICE agents left. One agent can be seen walking back and forth with some sort of chemical gas canister. We spoke with one man just after those agents left.
They asked us to let them leave. There were a couple of people who helped control the crowd, helped clear a path for everybody on the way out. They got 5, 6, 7 vehicles out. Last car, and nobody throwing anything, yelling, sure, nobody threw anything, nobody damaged the vehicle. And they dropped tear gas on the crowd as the last car drove away. So we let them out. Nobody touched anything. Yeah, said some words, which they clearly deserve by this point. They tear gassed the crowd. After the crowd did everything they asked to let them leave, they gassed the entire crowd where people were living on that block.
Now, the crowd eventually ended up at 26th and Nicollet as they set up barricades and began to rally. We also heard from witnesses of the shooting and its aftermath, including a woman who was on her way to church when the shots rang out. Our Jessica Hart shares what they saw.
Sounds no one wants to hear, and gas no one wants to breathe, as once again consumed Minneapolis.
None of this is okay. None of this is okay. This should not be happening. It's got to stop. I don't know how it's going to stop.
Sandra Boswell,
I've lived 57 years, almost 58 years, and I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Heard what led to this.
So I'm crossing 27th and I hear gunshots, and a lady came running down the street and grabbed me and hugged me, and they tear gassed her. I went down the street and he was laying in the street. He was laying at the bus stop, and there was no chance because there were so many holes and blood, and I think it's wrong. I hope he wasn't scared, and I hope he went to heaven right away.
Saturday morning, Alex Pretti was shot and killed by federal agents.
Seeing that man like that is wrong. You can't go around shooting people.
Yesterday felt like a little bit of positivity with the protests and all the turnout, and then you wake up this morning and it's all just torn right out from under you again, so just can't take it anymore.
All of these people couldn't take it anymore either, which is why they came to the scene and why Sandra shared her story.
Something's got to stop. I don't know what. I don't know how we're going to stop this. Oh, it's got to stop.
In Minneapolis, just
to me was a parent's desire and their passion to make sure that the story of Alex was told. Someone who went to work to care for veterans, someone who was a valued coworker, someone who relished and lived in this state in a big way, whether it was outdoor activities or being down there on the street as a First Amendment witness to what ICE is doing to this state. So once again, to Michael and Susan, when I talk to these parents, it's always in deep confidential conversation. In this one, though, Michael was very clear to me. He said, don't let them forget Alex's story. The world knows how he died. He died at the hands of ICE agents on the streets of Minneapolis. They want us to make sure we said how he lived. So to Michael and Susan, our deepest sympathies, but you have my commitment to continue to tell that story. So now we've got 2 Minnesotans dead. We didn't had time to start telling Renee's story of a poet and a mother and a bright spirit, and now we're telling Alex's story. So my question is, what's the plan, Donald Trump? What is the plan? What do we need to do to get these federal agents out of our state? You thought fear, violence, and chaos is what you wanted from us, and you clearly underestimated the people of this state and nation. We are tired, but we're resolved. We're peaceful, but we'll never forget. We're angry, but we won't give up hope. And above all else, we are clearly unified. If it was the intention of Donald Trump to make an example of Minnesota, then I'm damn proud of the example that the world's seeing. We believe in law and order in this state. We believe in peace. And we believe that Donald Trump needs to pull these 3,000 untrained agents out of Minnesota before they kill another person. And we're up here telling another story of a Minnesotan just trying to live their life without the interference. To Americans who are watching this right now, and I don't know, maybe you're watching it with curiosity, bewilderment, horror, scorn, or sympathy. I've got a question for all of you. What side do you want to be on? The side of an all-powerful federal government that can kill, injure, menace, and kidnap its citizens off the streets? Or on the side of a nurse at the VA hospital who died bearing witness to such government? Or the side of a mother whose last words were, "I'm not mad at you." The side of tens of thousands of peaceful citizens who showed up to march when the wind chill was 40 below because they love this state and they love this country. You're allowed to decide at any point that you're not with this anymore. If you voted for this administration, heck, even if you thought Operation Metro Surge was a good idea, sounded like the thing to do a month ago, you're still allowed to look at what's happening here in Minnesota and say, this isn't what I voted for and this isn't what I want. I ask you not to stand by idly. Speak out, share what you're seeing, and urge others to put politics aside. We're no longer having a political debate, we're having a moral debate. We all want secure borders and immigration enforcement that prioritizes criminals. And I want to thank the press, especially the local press, who has done a deep dive to show that's exactly what Minnesota does. But what you're seeing is not common sense, lawful, or humane enforcement. That's not what this occupation is about. Let me say our conversation should not be about, and I know we get asked of what we're doing on there, how many state patrol or police or National Guard I can put on the street. This isn't about how many people I can put on the street. It's about how many of these people, these ICE agents and whoever else was thrown into this unholy mess, how many Donald Trump can get out of here. Minnesotans, you've won the hearts and minds of people across this country, and you've done it through your peaceful, resolved defense of your neighbors and the Constitution. So once again, Minnesotans, stay peaceful, stay safe. Change is coming and we can feel it. But this fight still goes on. And I'm just glad today to be joined in person because it's someone who's been at the side of Minnesotans throughout this and through every other thing we've gone through over the last 7 years. Someone who we describe as the people's lawyer, someone who is fighting this battle for the Constitution, for the safety of Minnesotans in courts every single day.
Agent and former prosecutor, who's now a defense attorney, is calling for the officers involved in yesterday's shooting to face charges. Sharon Hughes spoke with that former agent who is calling for their arrests. Sharon?
Yeah, Julie, he's calling for not just the arrest, but also a thorough investigation into the shooting by both the feds and the state, and if not the feds, at least the state independently. Like many others who have seen the multiple video angles of Alex Pretti being gunned down by federal agents, criminal defense attorney Jack Rice had a similar reaction.
I'm horrified by what I'm seeing.
Rice says it's even more concerning the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension has been shut out of investigating yet another ICE-involved homicide in the state. But he says that doesn't mean the state cannot prosecute the agent accused.
You can try to exclude a lot of evidence, but what we have are cell phones. So you may think as the government, federal or state, that you can control the crime scene. The problem is with a cell phone, everybody is an investigative reporter.
Plus, the former prosecutor says he didn't observe Alex Pretti doing anything criminal.
He was armed. He had a license to carry. And you can't shoot somebody simply because they have a weapon. It simply is a bright line that the feds crossed.
That line, bright enough. The Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus issued a statement, quote, "Every peaceable Minnesotan has the right to keep and bear arms, including while attending protests, acting as observers, or exercising their First Amendment rights. These rights do not disappear when someone is lawfully armed, and they must be respected and protected at all times." This, despite FBI Director Kash Patel implying in a Fox News interview that it was illegal for Alex Pretti to practice his Second Amendment rights by having a weapon.
You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you wanted.
Showing up to a protest with a gun is a constitutionally protected right. He had the right to have a weapon.
As of tonight, no charges have been filed.
I had the chance to go to
All right, I'm going to get out of here on this one. Here's a bonus clip for you.
speak with a young woman named Hope, who lives just a block away from the scene where Pretti was murdered. And I thought it was really important to share with you the conversation I had with her. She works locally and she's from the city, and she really wanted to make sure that her message was delivered about why the people of Minneapolis, St. Paul are fighting so hard to defend their community from the federal invasion of their cities. Take a listen.
So I came here, the location of where Alex Pretti was murdered, just a few days ago, and I saw this young woman here, Hope. Hope, you said you live a block away from here?
Yeah, about a block and a half in the neighborhood. This is my neighborhood.
And why did you decide to come out this Monday morning to this memorial site that they put here?
I work in a restaurant, so I was working all weekend. And in the restaurant, you're just like focused on getting the job done and protecting your coworkers. And then on Monday morning, you kind of crash out. And I was just feeling emotional, and I just wanted to walk down here. I wasn't sure if it was still here or not, but I didn't know what else to do with myself, so that's what I did.
Well, you just said a minute ago that you protect your coworkers. What do you mean by that?
We have systems in place in case ICE shows up. We have rideshare programs. We have groceries being delivered to people that can't leave, donations. And again, but that shouldn't be like celebrated. It should be like what we do for our neighbors and how we move in the world. So
Hope, you live a block away. How does it feel to have something like this happen to kind of shatter the peace of this neighborhood? It's a vibrant street.
yeah, immigrants is what make Minneapolis great and what it is. And I honestly, after being here through George Floyd in 2020, it doesn't feel maybe as surreal as from the outside, just because we've been here before, but this is different because it's federal agents who are running around with nobody to answer to, and they're violent. And I've seen them in action. They're not trained, like compared to even the MPD. Like you can tell they don't know what they're doing. I was down on 34th in Portland, maybe 20 minutes after they had killed Renee, and just watching them carry on it's ridiculous, and it's insulting to our intelligence and to our humanity. And I'm just really angry.
How does it feel to have this type of invasion of federal agents, just, as you said, not trained, indifferent, no compassion, doing whatever the hell they want to do in your city?
I'm just angry, and I think Minneapolis is at a boiling point of being angry. And I don't want to say too much, but at some point, how do you keep meeting this violence with nonviolence and being passive? They answer to no one. They act like it. They're hateful, and we just want them to go. But I don't want them to go to another city either, So I don't want them to go elsewhere to cause harm, but I don't want them to be here anymore. I want them to leave the people that I love alone, and I want them to leave my community alone.
There is something incredibly beautiful, though, about the response that I've seen since I've been here. You and I both got a little emotional. I came and gave you a hug. Talk about how the community is responding, though, to what is happening here.
I mean, I think if anybody sees from the outside, Minneapolis is very organized and very strong, and we stick up for ourselves and for our neighbors. It's unbelievable. Like, I have my whistle on. We meet at schools. Every block you can see there's people with whistles ready. Parents are coming with whistles just to make sure that kids get to and from school, at bus stops, anywhere. I mean, it's very organized system of and I don't even want to go into it too much.
No, please don't. But
sharing and texting and knowing where to go, where to be at a moment's notice for help, to show up for our neighbors. So.
While Hope and I were here at the memorial site, two women came out and were just offering coffee to the other
and you
people.
See that at every block, anywhere.
It was stunning to me. And one of the women that came out to offer us coffee said she actually knew Alex and that he was here often and he would always offer her help. So for me, I think it's just
and he loved black coffee. So.
Yes, exactly. So when we were here earlier, there was another woman who came and just brought a cup of black coffee and just left it here at the memorial. Hope, for people that aren't here in Minneapolis, that are about what's happening here, but the resilience of the spirit of Americans in the community.
I think people should wake up and take this very seriously. This is not like a joke. They don't care, and they'll come for you next. And just because it's not directly affecting you right now doesn't mean it won't. And we need to drop that narrative that if it's not affecting me right now, I don't need to do anything about it. And you should care. You should care before it affects you. But it will come to you eventually. And this is what's waiting for you. This is what's waiting.
Hope, your name means a lot to me, and I'm thankful for you to share this with us. Thank you for doing this.
No problem. You guys have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
After I was at the memorial for Alex Pretti, I then went to George Floyd Square. I wanted to go and see it for myself, but I also was reminded about what accountability is supposed to look like when people in power make sure that those that have done wrong, like Derek Chauvin, that they're held accountable. I wanted to share my thoughts and to share that experience with you now.
Hi, it's Katie Fang on behalf of The Contrarian and Katie Fang News. I am coming to you live from George Floyd Square. Back on May 25th of 2020, as many of you will recall, George Floyd was murdered here. I'm standing in front of Unity Foods, and on the corner you can see the menthol tobacco shop. That's where George Floyd went in to be able to get the tobacco that he bought, and then when he came out, he was murdered by then Officer Derek Chauvin. I thought it was important for me to share being here with all of you. One of the biggest impacts and consequences of the prosecutions, plural, state and federal, of Derek Chauvin and the other officers that were involved in the murder of George Floyd was accountability. And I am in Minneapolis, and we now have at least 2 people that have been murdered at the hands of federal agents. And whether you agree or not that they are, quote, law enforcement, they certainly are operating under color of authority. They are armed. They have badges. Some of them don't identify themselves. Many of them remain masked to hide their identities. But George Floyd was murdered here, and they've actually put this memorial up. And like the time I was spending at the Alex Pretti Memorial at the site of Alex Pretti's murder, this memorial here has been placed at the site where George Floyd was murdered. And we have a community that back in 2020 showed its discontent, which is actually, I think, a very weak word to describe the outrage, the horror, the sadness at the cruelty of what happened to George Floyd at the hands of somebody who took an oath. I miss when HR Floyd at the hands of somebody who took an oath to swear to protect and to serve the community. We now have federal agents that have been sent into Minneapolis, St. Paul, and other places across the country, but specifically here. When I spoke to Attorney General Keith Ellison this weekend, he called it an invasion. He said the Twin Cities are under invasion by federal agents and federal authorities. And now we hear today that Tom Homan, the border czar, is also being dispatched to join the members of the Trump regime that have come to these cities to be able to terrorize the people in these communities. It is remarkable how sometimes people just kind of move on from the atrocities that they witness and they experience. I remember it'll be almost 6 years on May 25th when George Floyd was murdered back in 2020. And I remember the outrage and anger that I felt seeing what happened and the fact that, you know, it took so much to be able to find and achieve that accountability. It took people in an administration and people in positions of authority to step up and say, not on my watch, and that the rule of law means something. And because it means something, we're going to defend those principles, and we're going to make sure that no matter who you are, no matter what role you occupy, no matter what authority you may have been given in your job, that you will be held accountable for the actions that you have. We also found out yesterday that the local authorities have once again been excluded from the investigation that's being taken, allegedly investigation being done into the murder of Alex Pretti. That is in addition to the fact that the local authorities were not allowed to be a part of the investigation into the murder of Renee Nicole Good. But in the George Floyd instance, we did see an investigation done that was incredibly thorough. And we saw people.
You know, remember the January 6th, you're like, these right-wingers, or remember like when Ashley Babbitt was shot in the Capitol? She was trying breaching the private area while Congress were doing votes. And she was given multiple opportunities to stand down and back up. But she didn't. She was ultimately shot. And all the people were screaming, oh, that police officer, he needs to face murder charges. No, that guy was doing his job. He was protecting like that. And it was ruled justified. Of course, the mega people didn't like it. It stunk that Ashley Babbitt died. But you got the same people, we don't need investigation. They're the same people that want investigation into Renee Good's fiance and her family, into Don Lemon, who was recording in a church, all the church protesters saying it's worse than, what was it? They were saying that, it's something worse than, I forget it was, but they were saying it's worse than that. Like acts of violence like that. Yeah, all the people, all the protesters, like Jolly Good Rancher out there, John Lemon, all these protesters, these so-called agitators, these, disturbers, people go out there honking the horn, blowing the whistles, holding signs that said, F5s, get the hell out. They want investigation. All the people who are slandering, bashing on ICE agents and Trump administration, oh, they need to be investigated. But we don't need investigation, Jonathan Ross. And you have unnamed sources that go around saying that Jonathan Ross had internal bleeding, had resuscitated CPR. The same unnamed sources saying that Alex Pretti bit off a finger of one of the ICE agents, so that's why they had to take him out. Absolutely crazy.
Like Keith Ellison and others that were a part of that investigation and ultimate prosecution of Chauvin and the other men that were culpable. But I'm not sure if you're able, can we show? I just want to be able to pan over maybe to the right over here. I have an incredible team over here that's working with me, but I want to show you. This is a gas station that is since shut down, but there's a sign, obviously, that you can see where there's people, there's power. And then if we pan over to the I forget, I'm having one of those moments where you kind of circle the George Floyd Square, but there's kind of a circle. I don't even remember what the name of these roadways are. Anyway, the roundabout, thank you. See, smarter people than me are helping me. You see the power to the people fist. That fist is actually on different entrances to George Floyd Square, but I wanted you to be able to see it. And then obviously, to the extent that you can see the memorial that's here, there are stuffed animals. There are flowers. There are potted plants. It's obviously winter. It's cold here, but it's here. And it's been here. I have been told by the locals it has been here since George Floyd was murdered, and then especially since Chauvin was convicted. And so they have decided that this is one way to continue to memorialize and honor the memory of George Floyd is by having this memorial. And if I can share this with you as well, I'm not sure if we can see it, but
and I remember
there is
passing legislation about the George Floyd.
You probably know Vistaprint for.
If I can share this with you as well, I'm not sure if we can see it, but there is, I'll call it a painting, although it's been put on a particular more permanent canvas of the face of George Floyd. It is incredibly moving to be a part of this and to be reminded of the history. I think a lot of people got to know the power of the people of Minnesota and of Minneapolis. When George Floyd was murdered, we saw the people taking to the streets to talk about how important it was for their voices to be heard, their outrage and their anger as to somebody who was a part of the community that was just murdered.
Yeah, it's not just George Floyd. I mean, there's other police accountability. Like, it starts with George Floyd, Dante Wright, Breonna Taylor, Tyree Nichols, Manuel Ellis, Sonia Massey. Luckily, some of these cops have been convicted, but others, unfortunately, haven't.
Again in broad daylight. In broad daylight. They are acting with impunity. They don't care. And they're doing things in broad daylight. Same thing happened to Renee Nicole Good, as happened to Alex Pretti over the weekend. I also wanted to just kind of note quickly, one of the biggest takeaways from the George Floyd murder was the fact that people had video cameras and they were on the street. And that video footage from cell phones from bystanders and witnesses was a huge part of the investigation and prosecution of Chauvin. We have also seen now the effect and the importance of people not only videotaping and video recording their encounters with federal agents that are kidnapping people off of our streets, but we are also seeing that helped us prove the lies concerning the murder of Renee Nicole Good by Jonathan Ross.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you got these ICE agents running up to people when people just simply exercise their freedom of speech, protective or free speech, or going into people's workplaces, trying to scare them, trying to intimidate, like when the few ICE agent went to McDonald's. Remember that guy, that 17-year-old Target worker got kidnapped and he got roughed up and dumped 8 miles away in a Walmart. What about that DoorDash lady who's so afraid, ran into a couple souls, and that woman was Native American. She was about to give up that lady, but she said, you know what, screw it. So she stood up for that woman's right. That DoorDash lady was so scared, she was so traumatized, couldn't even say her own name. And this is what they go around. And the ICE agents go around to people saying, haven't you learned? Or, hey, are you afraid? Well, you should be. Remember that pastor? White pastor. He did it. That pastor did the same thing what Alex Pretti was doing, defending a woman. ICE agents were harassing a woman And the pastor went up to the ICE agent and said, hey, I'm not afraid of you. Take me instead. Why would we mess with her? So they did. They cuffed him up, asked him a couple times, are you afraid? Are you afraid yet? Are you afraid yet? Nope. Well, get out. You're no fun because you're white. See, this is what ludicrous. What about ICE agents going up to people demanding ID and U.S. citizenship, asking for proof of papers or passport? And you have Kristi Noem going around saying, well, every American should start carrying papers and passport. ID's not good enough. And the Trump administration will go around saying open carry Second Amendment is unlawful. It's against the law. And they'll go around saying even you exercise your First Amendment, freedom of speech, press, assemble, petition, have religion is unlawful. It's crazy. Crazy.
Us, the ICE agent, and now also because of incredible footage from bystanders and witnesses on Saturday.
Oh yeah. You know one thing. Remember when the church protesters went to that church? They're saying that's worse than somebody or a group of people robbing a bank. I kid you not.
Yesterday, we have also seen that Alex Pretti was murdered as he was unarmed, as any firearm that may have been on his person was taken off of him before more than 10 shots were fired into his body. We also saw that he was defending 2 women that were being assaulted by CBP agents, and that he himself was sprayed in the face with some type of chemical irritant, maybe pepper spray, as well as the other women before he was tackled by 8 or 9 CBP agents before he was murdered. We have to continue to bear witness, and part of bearing witness includes using the tools that we have. Our eyes, our ears, our voices, but our phones. And again, I wanted to remind people that that was one of the most effective ways to prosecute Derek Chauvin, was using the footage that we had from the eyewitnesses and the bystanders that were here when he was murdered, when George Floyd was murdered. But I wanted to join you here, and I wanted to just kind of remind everybody, we move on in our lives, especially those that don't live in the places that are directly a part of those moments in history. But I also wanted to say it's here. So if you are coming to Minneapolis, or if you are here, this is George Floyd Square, and this is the memorial to honor the memory of George Floyd.
All right, I'm out here much. Peace out.